I come across a lot of people name dropping research about diversity and teams, saying that diversity is important for creative teams, for innovative teams, for high performing teams. But I never hear them provide any practical tools to help you understand why. I'm going to introduce you to a geology concept that no one's discussed with you before to help you understand about the diversity of your teams. I'm Dr. Jonathan Ashong Lamptey. I work with organizations to make them inclusive, and I'm on a mission to help 1 million people like you to make your workplace inclusive. Get your pen and paper ready because I'm going to reveal a geology secret for understanding the diversity of your teams that no one has told you about. This is an open secret, but I've never heard anyone talking about this. And to put it into context, in the past week, I've been at conferences in the US and the UK, and what I'm about to share with you never came up. I'm talking about demographic fault lines, and I'm going to do 3 things. First, I'm going to explain what a demographic fault line is. Second, I'm going to explain why it matters to you. And finally, I'm going to explain how you can use them to understand intersectionality in your organization right now. So what is a demographic fault line? In geology or seismology, faults are fractures in the Earth's crust. If they're left undisturbed, they go unnoticed for years. Earthquakes are a result of layers of crust suddenly moving along a fault. Fault lines in diversity and inclusion have at least 3 properties that make them similar to faults in geology. First, they're multiple layers. In our case, we're talking about identity. Members of a group have many demographic dimensions, i.e. intersectionality. You can be Asian, Sikh, and a woman, and each of these social identities contributes to multiple layers of identity within a group. A disturbance can cause people to organize themselves along these fault lines to create subgroups. So if we think in binary terms, this could be men and women. It could be married people and unmarried people. You get the point, but it's not just about generally accepted demographic attributes. It's not about things like race, ethnicity, and age. A fault line could be organized against a common attribute like we all work in the same building, or we all went to the same university, or we all have the same job title. It's about having something in common that other people in the group do not have. The second property to discuss is that these fault lines, they can go completely unnoticed until they're subject to an external force, a push. And in a group context, this could be something as simple as a tight deadline or a lack of resources. It creates stress and it creates tension. And this acts as a trigger and it causes the group to fracture along the fault line. The third and final thing to mention is that these strong fault lines, they provide an opportunity for groups to physically crack. And this can cause division within a team, and this can lead to anxiety, poor communication, and this reveals the hidden importance of these fault lines. Are you with me so far? I know there's a lot in there, but the key message is that fault lines are potential fractures within a group, and these are related to aspects of our identity. Regular listeners will know that we take an evidence-based approach here. We rely on evidence, rigorous methods, and pragmatic approaches with a human touch. And we're always trying to be innovative, looking for new, interesting, and fun ways of achieving better results. But here's the thing, that doesn't always mean that we have to chase the latest research. This fault line concept, it's over 20 years old. I'm sharing it with you because I think it's important that you know about it. So why should you care about any of this? Well, before I tell you that, I want to talk about the importance of sharing. If you hear anything that you find interesting, then please share it with one other person that you think would find it useful. If you're finding this for the first time, make sure you check out the show notes. You can access these wherever you're listening to the podcast. The show notes have got details of all the reports and all the resources that are mentioned in the show. I've put this together for you so that you can go deeper into anything that we discuss here. Now let's get back to talking about your demographic fault lines. I've introduced you to the concept of demographic fault lines, but so what? Why should you care? Well, it's an important concept because it gives you a way to explain things that you're already interested in. Organizations that are doing meaningful work around diversity and inclusion look at intersectionality. And what I mean is they look at the multiple identities that we have and they consider how these identities work together. So the reason that fault lines are important is that it allows you to consider the social dynamics of more than one social identity characteristic at a time. And that's why they're useful, because this is a challenge. This is a challenge in organizations, and it reflects one of the three biggest problems that organizations experience when they try to become inclusive. And that is around the business case. The business case for diversity, specifically their specific business case for diversity. Moving beyond rhetoric isn't easy, but understanding fault lines gives you strong clues that really need to be considered. An example of this is the strength of the fault lines, and you're going to see this in organizations, you're going to see this in groups. So what I want to say here is that fault lines within a group become stronger when more of the attributes are aligned in the same way. For example, in a group of cisgender men and cisgender women, where all the women are over 60 and all the men are under 30, the gender and the age fault lines, they're aligned, and this creates a single, stronger fault line. This matters because research suggests that strong fault lines can influence the dynamics of a particular group and the subgroups within it. So in the case that I've just described, we may find that the women over 60 all have particular views, and these are quite distinct from the men who are under 30. And we may find that the groups organize themselves within these subgroups in order to make decisions, in order to come to conclusions. This can affect your performance. This can affect how inclusive your team is. Now, I know these are general examples, but can you see how this matters to you? You may not know why these subgroups form. And when I say subgroups, I'm talking about the little groups that form within larger groups. But fault lines can help to explain it. So what can you do with this? Well, look at your teams, look at your organization, and use fault lines as a lens to look at some of the inclusion challenges that you're having. For example, emerging research shows that white middle-class women are the primary beneficiaries of diversity and inclusion initiatives. But why is that? Is it possible that for women, being white and being middle-class align to form a strong fault line? Is it also possible that that fault line aligns them with white middle-class men within a particular organization? And what does that mean in general in terms of these diversity and inclusion initiatives? Well, this may mean that white middle-class women experience outcomes that are different from, say, Asian working-class men. I'm telling you this because this is a real practical approach that you can use in your own teams and in your own organizations, and it's more useful than talking about in-groups or out-groups. And it's something that you can use to observe what's going on in your next meeting. So let's wrap this up. What are the key messages here? Demographic fault lines are a geology secret to understanding the diversity of your teams. Because 1, fault lines are potential fractures within a group related to aspects of our identity. 2, fault lines within a group become stronger when more of the identity attributes are aligned in the same way. And 3, you can use fault lines to observe group dynamics right now. So what do you think? Are there any fault lines within your own team, within your own organization? Get in touch or leave a message. I would love to hear from you. If you've learned something from today's show, you should sign up to our insider list. It's free and you can stay ahead of the pack and get the best of everything that we produce. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.